all of you. I'm going to start the webinar with a beautiful, a quotation of uh, uh, Moniz uh, uh, Niazi, a famous shair of Urdu, and he said, शहर का तफदील होना, शाद रहना और उदास, रौनकें जितनी जहां है औरतों के दम से है. First of all, thank you for joining for the very important time in our history. A very, very happy Women's Day to everyone. On behalf of Rage Foundation and School of Humanities and Social Sciences of Raffles University, I, Randhir Kumar Gautam, welcome everyone to a webinar which topic is Women's Empowerment, a Holistic Approach. It is my pleasure to welcome Professor Benita Singh, ma'am. Professor Benita Singh is a sociologist currently teaching at Ranchi Women's College. And Ranchi is a very famous, school of anthropology. And it's my honor and it's a privilege to know you, Professor Benita, ma'am. In her distinguished academic career of more than 25 years, she has taught postgraduate and undergraduate students and supervised several PhD students. Her areas of specialization are sociology of gender, sociology of tribes, sociology of globalization, migration, and human rights. Besides this, she is a very active member of Indian Sociological Society. She has been a member of various committees, and she has presented good research papers and participated in many international and national webinars. Thank you so much, ma'am, to be a source of inspiration and accepting our invitation. I'm also joined by one more distinguished personality, Deepika Dave, ma'am. She is the founder and president of Rage Global Foundation. Professionally, she is an engineer and project manager of various important projects in USA. She works among capacity building of social activists, networking and campaigning about women's empowerment and anti-drug awareness program in USA. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting my invitation again. Before the talk of our speaker, let me try to give a brief context of today's talk. We have today the International Women's Day, and we honor the women who have heroically imperialism, fascism, casteism, and colonialism, and have sacrificed their lives to fight for a better and just world. It is a day to celebrate the ideas that freedom is powerful, freedom is precious, liberty for others as good as liberty for us. Even after a struggle of so many years, we live in a very unjust world. Violence against women is still pandemic. We are still facing the same age-old questions. Can we overcome societal biases against women? Will we achieve gender equality? How society pays when women work is unpaid? The persistent prevalence of patriarchal prejudices and misogyny appears to have been in full display in each domains of society, be it family, be it law, education, labor, and leadership. Like women, men are born. Men are not born, I would say, but made by society in the context of masculinity, along with the conception of Simona de Beauvoir. Here I want to brought Butler perspectives that which insisted that gender resides in repetitive words and actions, that is in performance, and we have a hegemony, uh, patriarchal culture for that matter, and such repetitions of our actions are rarely performed freely. Even the idea of women empowerment was introduced an International Women's Conference, Nairobi, in 1985. And women empowerment, is defined as a change of context of women's life, which enables her to increase capacity for leading a fulfilled potential human life. It gets reflected both in external and internal qualities. We also know that the story of empowerment of women is not a singular narrative. You know, rather it is located in the complex set of religion, caste, ethnicity, identity, for that matter. Although women are important productive workers in India and in general nation international economy, despite the fact that much of their works fall in invisible and unorganized category. But we are hopeful for better future. We have seen India has been home to a highly diverse and critical women's movement in recent days, such as Me Too movement, anti-CA protest, and farmer protest. Uh, I think woman is just another being with equal power of creative imagination, and a society which disregards them under any pretext is retrograde and suffers from various chronic elements. So we are facing many social problems because of the unjust social structure. So now in this context, now I would like to invite Professor Vinita Sigwam to give more insights on the very topic, today's topic of webinar, that is Women's Empowerment, a Holistic Approach. So ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much, Randhir, for having invited me. Deepika ma'am, though I have not met you personally, but it's via Randhir that I come to know you across this webinar. The thing is, Randhir has more or less broadly touched issues, which leaves me thinking where I should begin from. Because I had certain plans in mind, certain things which I wanted to take up, and then it's on the spot, extemporally changed. So what I would like to begin with is the two terms that we are using, women empowerment. I would like to begin with the term women, and talking of women, the first thing that comes to my mind is that they are not a monolithic group or a single category, as Randhir had put it. The age, caste, class, race, religion, education, the quality, the kind of education, the economic strata, and people coming from across other continents too. That makes a huge lot of differences. Uh, so when we talk of women, we have to keep these conceptual categories in mind, because what is applicable to one set of women may not be applicable
Ma'am,
to another set of women.
sorry
So
to interrupt. Kindly turn the video so that we can also watch you. No problem is if there is any network issue. Yes, yes, yes.
I hope
Thank you.
you can see me now
Yes, yes,
with
yes.
all the gray hair.
No problem, no problem.
I'm proud of my gray hair. That's why.
Yes, 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 yes. And I'm also proud of whatever you
So
are.
the first thing is that women are not. You cannot talk of all women as one single category.
Mhm,
And the second thing that comes to my mind is the Indian versus the Western counterpart.
mhm,
Randhir was talking about Butler and Simone de Beauvoir
mhm,
and the Western woman. The concept and the qualities that are associated with an Indian woman are generally not associated with the Western counterpart. And on
mhm,
this, at the philosophical and ideological plane, we have
mhm.
Professor Maitreyi Chaudhary from
Yes, yes.
Center for the Study of Social Systems. I'm not quoting anybody else other than Maitreyi. She is
Mhm,
of the opinion that
mhm,
Indian women are totally a lot different by way of the qualities of womanhood. I mean,
mhm,
the qualities of nurturing, caring, concern, love, sacrifice, these qualities of womanhood, or which is associated with an Indian woman, may not be found in an Western counterpart. So that is one big wall that is drawn between the Indian woman and the Western woman. Though things are changing, these are traditional concepts that we have
mhm,
been living with over the ages. And it can be changed. So I might have to face criticism on this issue from my Western counterparts.
mhm,
So, and the third part is the traditional gender roles versus the biological roles.
mhm,
What I am a hardcore believer that it is the biology that is the culprit,
mhm,
because the basic reproductive job, the job of conception to delivery to reproduction, it's there that a woman gets stranded. That part from the womb, it starts with the 9 months of pregnancy and it ends with the delivery and the postpartum care and then the caring of the children. It becomes an online never ending
mhm,
process. So, and which cannot be changed, it's fixed by mother nature. And all those people who've tried tampering and hampering with that mother nature, the natural biological cycle of talking of IVF, same sex marriage, and things like that, unnatural things. They are in for not, it's not a question of criticism or choice. It is a question that there are some things which Mother Nature, and you've seen one of the after effects of what is happening all over destruction, the kind of disease, the kind of destruction that's coming around when we try over this using the resources, the natural resources that are coming up. On one side, we talk of preservation, letting things go the natural way. And the other side, we contradict our own statements by doing what is not natural and not following Mother Nature. So this reproductive role of women, I feel that is the crux of the issue. Let us put it, it's not society, it's not culture, economy or polity. Simple thing is it's biology. The caring and the rearing, everything revolves around that. Taking all these issues into account, then we come down to the term empowerment. We all know that the internet today is flooded with material PDFs on empowerment, the concepts, the theories. So I'm not going to deal with that. There's enough material for us to just put on the net and read what's written there. So I would think in my mind, what comes up is after the UN Human Development Capabilities approach, the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, then the Sustainable Development Goals we talked of, everywhere the term has come in,
mhm.
empowerment. Now, this is the, uh, am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes. You are audible.
Fine. Everywhere this term is coming, and it is what I understand, my understanding goes that accepting and including people who are outside the process of development and pulling them into the mainstream, because empowerment for a Western woman, for a white woman, will be different from that for a black woman, or maybe for a 20-year-old and an 80-year-old. My mother-in-law, she died 6 months back. I recall that when I was taking classes online, she said, "How are you sitting at home? Where is your chalk, duster, blackboard?" Fine. She is no more, with due respect. So this kind of empowerment is different for different people. So we cannot even use the term, just like women themselves are categorized. When we talk of the empowerment concept, it's a process, and its implications and ramifications are definitely going to have different impacts, or different people will have a different set of meanings which they will attach to the term empowerment. And I would go back to Randhir's favorite, on which he is doing research, Mahatma Gandhi. uh, I was just reading Gandhi, and I went on reading. Just like yesterday, I started reading a book, The Life and Works of Rashid Jahan. Uh, and I just found The Rebel and her work. She died at the age of 47 of cancer, being a doctor herself. And then she goes into literature from being a medical practitioner. So the rebel inside the woman. So it was fun reading. I tried analyzing. And same way, when I started reading Gandhi, there are some beautiful lines which he has written. When he talks of the march, the Dandi March, and then he says in one chapter that I have taken the women out of the kitchen. Now it's up to you people, post-independent India, that you'll keep her and not send her back, relegate her job to being only that to the kitchen. Don't confine her only to the job of cooking and caregiving. I have put her on the streets as a part of the political process. So you can just look at the thought, the ramifications of the thought. It has no language. There is no hi-fi aura attached to it. He puts it in simple terms that women were out on the streets demanding for freedom. Now that freedom, the political freedom, and the kind of individualistic freedom that women are talking about today, there's a huge gap between the two, but still freedom, we can use the term freedom. Now empowerment, as you said, Randhir was also talking of it. When we talk of empowerment, the simplest, I had a scholar who was working on impact of media on women empowerment. So the conclusion of the thesis was economic empowerment is the most important thing. I signed on the 350 pages. I gave my approval with a smile. I said, "I'm sorry, I don't agree to you and your views. But it's a process, it's a degree, a thesis. That is your view, that economic empowerment is the ultimate empowerment. But in my view, economic empowerment also still has a lot of holes in it. For example, financial literacy. I work in a girls' college, and being a woman of 55-year-old, I still have somebody to take care of my income tax. I am not able to do simple income tax calculations. I am happy if my larder and my refrigerator is full of fruits and vegetables. I know very high-flying women professionals who know they earn like hell, but they have no accounts. The husband or the male in the family is managing their income and their investments, their shares, debentures, stock market, everything. They know nothing of it. And the second thing is the freedom to choose financial. I was happy to read recently that in India also laws are coming up where a married woman is allowed to take care of her parents' family and use her income. She can give it to anybody, or her nephews, or in her parents' family also, in a natal family. That's a huge thing. Though it was a widow they were talking about, she was a widowed woman, and she said that the brother-in-law doesn't take care of her. It's the nephews and the nieces, her brother's children, after her widowhood, to take care. So she wanted to share her husband's property with her nieces and nephews instead of giving it to her marital family. So things are coming up where financial freedom people don't have. So saying simply talking of income or economic freedom does not solve the issue. There are too many holes which still need to be filled. And being in the education sector, I am myself admitting before in public that I am financially virtually illiterate. The second thing is the social empowerment. This is the toughest job. 2 days back, my colleagues were sitting and talking of framing a seminar. They were planning on legal law and the lawmaking process and empowerment and how law and women. I straight away objected. I said, enough number of stringent laws are there. Where we fail is the implementation of the law. So don't talk of laws. It's ultimately society. And here also, as Randhir was saying, working and non-working. When I talk to girls in my college, I ask them, what does your mother do? Will you believe 90% of children they had the same reply in 2 decades back. They give me the same reply 2 decades later, that my mother does, within quotes, nothing. Nothing. That is the word they use. Kuch nahi karti hai. I call them back, take a class, make them have self-respect for domestic work. And that is the another crucial point where I become a hardcore Marxist. And when Marx talks of unpaid labor, the labor of production versus reproduction, emotional labor, labor of love, these are the terms he uses. And it is here that women are trapped because homemaking is not paid. Taking care of the family is not paid, and that is why Western women start calculating, talk of weekend vacations, make the husbands work, and then calculate every hour of hard work that goes into the homemaking process. In spite of all the gadgets, it's a factory also runs for 8 hours. A home is a place which runs 24 hours. And a woman is even awake at midnight, ensuring that all the ladder, all the taps, all the lights, the gate, the fence, everything is intact. It's going on in the mind. And that is why naturally the multitasking, which the HR people, human resources people discuss a lot, the management people, multitasking. Women are born multitaskers. On one side, they have especially the state to which I belong, the tribal women. They work, no maternity leave. The child is delivered, and if it's a natural birth, the next day she ties the child on the back in a backpack virtually, and she's out on the fields working. So there's nothing called the luxury of sitting back, taking rest and all. What the ramifications will be to the body, that is another issue, another point. But it is a fact that marriage versus marital status, and that is leading to the growth of singlehood, the growing number of single mothers, When we talk of the reproductive rights, the same-sex marriages, the IVFs that are coming up, women, when they study, when they learn, they want to use, as Randhir said, full potential within quotes. When it comes to full potential, the problem with a woman, what my experience tells me, even I faced it. I got married at the age of 18, just after my plus two, 12th class. And the only precondition I kept before my in-laws family was, I want to study all my life. Please do not stop me from studying. It's 36 years before, but still things have not changed much. So when you talk of the problem with girls is that the age of marriage, the age of the reproductive cycle, the age of building your career, it all coincides. So that same 1 decade which goes into a man's career is taken away by the woman in managing the family. So this is a huge, and the support, the kind of support that is required, which was available in traditional Indian families. You can criticize Indian families like anything. Joint families have 10 problems in them, issues, but there is a huge support system. And as you can see, I have started researching on the care crisis. When it came to my 92-year-old mother-in-law, I started looking into the nursing profession, as Randhir was saying, the migration issue. So many issues started coming up. Then I wrote 2 papers on sociology of caregiving and the care crisis. Because who will take care of whom? I'm talking of not institutional care, but the care at home. Nobody is left behind. The whole family is out to work. So when the whole family is out to work, the women's work, what was considered the woman's work, is left with nobody to cater to it, nobody to address it. And why? Because she doesn't get the due respect for that work. All I feel she looks forward to is a bit of respect. And highly educated women these days, I know of cases where they are leaving their jobs, quitting their jobs, taking breaks, long breaks, and even the corporate sector people have realized this. That is why they are giving long leaves. They talk of work from home. New type of work cultures are coming up in the corporate sector because they are losing on good women, and they realize that she needs terrible amount of support at that time in order to make the work-life balance proper. And that will help her to realize her full potential. So marriage is one huge issue. And then next is the family structure, the family arrangements, the kind of family responsibilities, and the outsourcing of all the family responsibilities. My 32-year-old son came with some of his friends. I got worried how I'll cook, how I'll manage. He said, don't worry, everything is available online. I'll get the food. I'll lay the table also. You sit and you smile. You cannot imagine the relief I felt. So things are coming up. Outsourcing of most of the work which the family was doing traditionally is taking place. But still the caregiving part, especially child rearing, is a difficult issue, challenging issue, because it's not only the biological part. There is a sociological part, the culture, the language, the good habits, courtesy, manners, everything a child imbibes from the mother right from that tender age. And a nanny or a caretaker cannot be a substitute to a mother or a grandparent. It is well. And then again, the Marxist view that ultimately, if we don't become alert, we'll again start that commune living, as you're seeing in metro cities. Community kitchens, community living is again starting. And I'm a huge supporter, don't mind, of live-in relationships also, because there is a very valid ground. Living in does not imply sexual relationship alone. I want to be very clear headed. I talk to people like that blatantly because it is a kind of support that the opposite sex, with all their traditional goodness, the skills that are there, they take care of each other also. And safety, security issues, the loneliness issue, the emotional needs. It's not only a physical sexual relationship, which is generally understood or misunderstood or whatever. So these are the kind of things that are taking place within the family. And when we talk of the social part, the extended family or the neighborhood, which the kinship system was taking care of, as he said, anthropology. So the extended family now is the entire neighborhood which works as a family system, because relatives come to know of things much later. It's the immediate neighbors and people around that provide support system to families. And within this discussion of the social aspect, I think we can include health and education, because both are a part of the social system. In education too, when we talk of empowerment, even the current Indian government has realized that just distributing pieces of paper is not going to help get jobs. So we are again back to the old skill-based education, that it's important to enhance and hone skills or vocations or job-oriented courses which will empower the children or help them to fetch jobs in the job market. And simply giving away pieces of degrees are not going to fetch jobs. So this is one realization, and that is why right from the top, the central level, there has been revamping that has already started. Now about health. Health, when we talk of empowerment and health, health will have, we can take it as in two aspects. One would be health and disease, the other would be health and nutrition. Now women have been born nutritionists, taking care of the nutritional needs of the family. I was in Bangalore. I remember they use ragi, that is the local term used. In Jharkhand, we call it madua. That has a rich iron content. These are some core basic food stuff which was a part of the culture and was consumed with seasons, just like seasonal fruits and seasonal vegetables, or what is good for health. Nobody told. It was a part of the tradition, a part of culture, and nutrition was being well managed. And all of us know the bad effects of packaged food, the bad effects of ultraviolet, this microwave rays, of use of plastics. We are seeing the health hazards that are coming up. And now with the coming of COVID and the health issue, uh, India is doing very well when it comes to the Ayush and the use of traditional herbs, Ayurvedic, homeopathic medicines, and immunity boosters, natural herbs which were used are now again regaining popularity. So, empowerment by way of health, yoga, that is another thing which we were missing out. Exercise, gyms, fitness clubs, which we talked of. Health is one big issue that has come up to limelight because of the COVID situation. And empowerment, when it comes to women, I feel the most neglected part is the women's health herself, the homemaker. I had a PhD girl working on that, health status of housewives. My men colleagues asked me, "Excuse me, madam, being a student of sociology, how are you planning to measure health? Because everything isn't measured." I talked of two kinds of research where we talk of research on base of statistics, which economists generally do. But the trend is changing post Amartya Sen and post Geodries, where they talked of human development, and then they talked of health and education as indicators of good health. So I laughed and said, I can tell you because you don't need a, they told me you will take a thermometer and measure just like you measure temperature. What scaling are you going to do to measure the health status? I said, I'm going to apply my traditional scales as a student of sociology. Number one, marital status. Whether she is a single woman, whether she is a married woman, and the number of family members whom she is entrusted to take care of. That's definitely going to impact her health. The second thing I talked about was the family structure, whether she is living in a nuclear family or whether it's a joint family. Because if it's a nuclear family, she'll be free to take decisions regarding the food, the quality, the kind, what she wants to serve, what she doesn't want to serve. But if it's a joint family, by the end of the day, she'll find that she has catered to everybody's needs, nutritional needs, because a family which is joint has 3 generations or 4 generations living in it. So if there are 3 generations, the elderly and the lactating child, a lactating child is also there, whose bottles, milk bottles, have got to be boiled on the same kitchen. So you can imagine the load on the kitchen. So I said that a huge difference on the health of the family structure will also make on the woman's health. And the third thing I said was the economic part. How much is the budget of a family to spend on the food, or a woman can spend? Does she go for the regular checkups, health checkups, which are this thing protocol to take care of her health after she is especially 40 or reaches the menopause stage? Once she is at menopause, does she go in for the regular checkup or she doesn't? So very well, I can think without any gadgets or without any equipments, a health status can also be measured through other dimensions. So these are the issues. Then we come down to the cultural part, the taboos, tradition, and the mores that exist in society. So Indian society has got a taboos with food, with culture, and it's a heady mix of tradition, modernity, as Professor Yogendra Singh, whom I revere from the core of my heart, has put it, that tradition, modernity continuum is clearly visible in Indian society. So when it comes to the cultural taboos and modernization process, for example, Professor Singh, Yogendra Singh quotes that when somebody buys a new car also, the first thing he does is he takes a coconut and breaks it on the bonnet of the car. That means he's inaugurating the car. So they haven't left their traditional way of welcoming something new, or within quotes, making it auspicious. So these things also continue. So when we talk of empowerment, we cannot leave out the cultural mores, traditions, or taboos. Then empowerment will also include the legal process. We cannot talk of empowerment without the law. What I feel is, especially post Nirbhaya, a whole lot of laws have been framed in the country. What goes wrong is having awareness of the law, the legal process. So what women need is legal awareness, legal assistance, and access to the courts, because there are places, even the geographical locations, where women are not aware or are not having access or the resources. to go to a court of law and
Bagus.
state things. So
Bagus gitu.
the having an
Jadi saya nih
understanding of the
itu jabaran
process
ngeliatin kan
is
aja.
quite
Ada mute
important.
kan aja.
And there the
Boleh baca
empowerment
ibu
process
replingkan.
is still incomplete.
Masa
And
rungkat
yes,
marufat
the
kan.
law is being misutilized also. And today, in fact,
Nah,
I
itu
should have begun by dedicating this whole
meta-meta
lecture
link mungkin
to
coba.
all the men in my
Link
life,
dia cuma di cuci.
whether it is my father, my husband, my son, or the scholars who have given scholars like Randhir, who have been in touch with me. It's because of their love and affection that I am who I am. Each time a woman falls, picks up her pieces, gets herself ready, and then walks. So it is the love and affection of all these sensitized, sensitive men, because of which we women feel wonderful. I don't imagine a world without the male counterpart, please. Because I remember my 8-year-old son one day asked me, Mama, uh, I cannot even cry. I said, why can't you cry? I can't shed tears. I said, why can't you shed tears? Who has said? No, I'm a boy. And because I'm a boy, I cannot shed tears. Imagine the child's agony. He wanted to howl and cry, but he cannot cry because the typical masculinity thing is attached, that he cannot cry, he cannot show emotions. Who says men are not emotional? They are equally sensitive, equally emotional human beings. So it is a misconception that men in general are violent. It all depends on the kind of socialization process that men have been under. And who is responsible again for the socialization? It's the women. It's the women. It's the family. So ultimately, it is the mother figure that matters. And I love being a mom to every child these days. So when my son comes and tells me that I'm your only child, how come everybody calls you mama? All my friends call you mummy, masi. I said, I love being a mom because womanhood or motherhood itself implies embracing, taking, understanding, love, care, concern. You shower it and you get it back, and definitely you give it and you'll get it back. So the legal process is there, and then ultimately this year's theme for the UN conference has been women in leadership and the political empowerment of women. Here, I would start with the top-down approach, whether it is the national level, the state, or the city where we have the mayor election, or the village level, the sarpanch and the panchayat mukhia. We all know that 33% reservation has come right up to the ground level, but again, when it comes to the implementation, we know of people who are sitting like dummies, and the husbands are managing the entire affairs of the panchayat. Yeah, and they say angutha chap mukhiya ji बैठी हैं. So what? But still, that is also a process. It will take time. It will take time, and the change has started happening. So we have to be patient. You cannot remove the history of a nation or of decades overnight. It just cannot be snapped. As I said, it is an ongoing process. So in this ongoing process, political empowerment and women in the leadership, from the top it has started. We are seeing, we just, of course, I'm not the kind of person who will give one example of Srimati Indira Gandhi and say, look, here goes the empowered women. For me, empowerment would mean small things, to choose what I want to eat. I want to eat this, but my family wants to eat that. So do I cook for myself also, or have I forgotten my taste buds also? So it begins with that, a small, simple decision of what I want to choose, what I want to wear, how I utilize my time. I call it me time. In the morning, I sit down 2 hours and nobody, my husband, dare come and talk to me that time because I say it's me time. The whole day I'm for others. Either at night or in the morning, give me 2 hours for myself. I want to get lost in my dream world. And it's a beautiful time with my cup of coffee and me and nobody else required there. So it's the practice of have developing a capacity or a capability to choose, to decide, to say no to things which you do not like. It's not that somebody can coax you or force you into it. So this for me, empowerment would mean these kind of things. It's not about radical feminism or going out on the streets or giving speeches of being anti-male. For me, it's a perfect mix of all the things taken together. Because our society, as I said, empowerment will have different connotations for different set of people. And same is the case with women. When we talk of women, it will have different connotations for different set of women, age, gender, religion. Just like I was reading this Rashid Jahan. So what empowerment will mean for her may not be the same for somebody else. So empowerment also will have different implications. Yes, but one thing is definite, that uh, it is the empowered woman who can help raise other women. I don't know much of Deepika ma'am, but I am a naughty person and a
Mhm.
curious person. I tried looking to your Facebook account, tried
Mhm.
searching your accounts on social media, tried finding out your background. And let me tell you, ma'am, uh, what I came to know was you also have taken up a career there, grown past. You could have had several choices of careers, but you chose to have something which will give you fulfillment. Just like the foundation that you have started working on for a good cause or for a better cause. And so it's my habit to look into people with whom you're associating, because ultimately the association and the kind of people you mix with definitely matters. So I wanted to know that who's running the who's the master uh, man, I would say, because the chair becomes gender neutral, but we are so used to it. Even my colleagues, the people, my subordinates tell, yes, sir. I said, please do not call me sir. Don't change my gender. Please use ma'am. But they say, no, sir. So the sir comes in spite of the fact that the chair or authority should be gender neutral. It is transformed with maleness, or it is always assumed that the male is sitting on the chair, and you
नहीं नहीं
always address the chair as a positive, as a male gendered person. So what I would like to conclude with, there's so much to talk.
Yes, yes.
I would know every, like, I feel I was talking to a scholar yesterday afternoon, and by the way, yesterday was my birthday too. So instead of preparing for today, my thoughts, assembling my thoughts, what I was sitting and doing is thanking everybody who was wishing me on the social media, thinking that it's more important than this work of today. So I was prioritizing. So today when I went to college, I'll narrate something without disclosing identity. A, a younger colleague, she howled in front of me, saying that she was abused physically by her husband. That is marital rape, if we put it in
Mhm.
clear cut terms. I was dumbfounded because she's around 40 plus. Her children are grown up. She started crying. So I'm still having her in front of me, and I'm the kind. you know, my research work has been on women workers, domestic workers.
Yes, domestic.
So what led me to write on that topic or research? Because I found I'm barely left with time to do the thing of my passion, that is academic work. Housework left me so exhausted personally at the age of 20 and 22. I barely had time to pursue my academics. I've taken huge breaks. My research work was done when my son went to class 8 and he started studying on his own. So because I wanted to do good work, quality work, which was not possible. You cannot do justice I mean, I am a failure at multitasking. I can only concentrate on one part of the work. So it was then that I realized that domestic work is the crux, the reproductive function is the crux, and these things need to be addressed without tampering Mother Nature. How to go about it will depend from person to person. It's very personalized, very community and individualistic based. We cannot give one statement and say this is applicable to one and all. There are choices to be made, and there are choices to be stuck to. Maybe good for some, maybe bad, and open to criticism to others. You might be criticized too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for having a productive and I would say the critical discussion about the nature of gender equality and women empowerment. And I can summarize your whole talk with one sentence. I would say labor. Care labor is the highest form of labor, and we have to actualize if we think about women empowerment. So now I would like to invite Deepika Didi madam to share your points on women empowerment, and then we'll have question answer session.
Thank you, Randir. Am I visible and audible to everybody?
Yes, you are visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Randir, for your dedication to working for RAISE Foundation and for the Raffle University on the topics of human science and gender studies. Hello and namaste to our distinguished speaker, Professor Vinita Singh. If Vice Chancellor is there, Dr. Goli, all our participants and viewers. It is a pleasure to be here with you all on this important event of celebrating women's leadership on International Women's Day. Today, we want to celebrate the progress we have made in gender equality, racism, girls' education, women's health, women's leadership in each culture and society. We live, like Professor Singh said, there are so many issues in our cultures, either social or cultural, and in each culture there are different issues, and for different women we have different issues in different cultures, in different nations. So, but there are also leadership we have seen that so we want to celebrate also that the progress women have made and progress our societies have made in gender equality, racism, girls' education, women's health, women's leadership in each culture and society. So we can say that we live in changing as well as challenging time. In today's modern world, stereotypes are being challenged and more diverse representation of women is clearly seen. Many societies have moved on from women having to succeed in men's world. We have successful politicians, accountants, PhDs, engineers, doctors, teachers, actresses, writers, executives, lawyers, stay-at-home moms. Everyone has accomplishments in many forms. And we have seen tremendous efforts made by women health workers, women doctors, professionals, women leaders, and women organizations in defeating COVID-19 pandemic across the globe. So I want to take a moment to thank all of these women leaders around the world. I also want to talk about the fact that women have demonstrated political leadership by working across party lines through parliamentary women's caucuses and by championing issues of gender equality such as elimination of gender-based violence, parental leave and childcare, pensions, gender equality laws, and electoral forms. Women leaders and women's organizations have demonstrated their skills, knowledge and networks to lead the nations. So also we applaud for that a historic milestone has been set with USA's first woman Vice President Kamala Harris, who has poised not just to put a really big cracks in the glass ceiling in this election, but she has poised to break the glass ceiling in future elections. In the current situation, a vice president of United States, being a daughter of immigrants, is a role model effect. We are currently getting there that someone would have been there in a presidency role, but not yet. Because, like Professor Vinita Singh said, we have double standards still exist on how our society perceive, value, and judge men and women. And my heart was broken when I read an article from Forbes on research that says that 50% of men and 39% of women in the US are not comfortable to have a woman in the highest government position. So because they still have less confidence in women's leadership. So now let's talk about women's empowerment. Why we still in 2021 we have to talk about women's empowerment. From 19th century it was women are working on women empowerment. So like Professor Vinita Singh said, we have women empowerment in different is different in different age of women, different age of people from different culture, from different countries. So as she has talked in depth about Indian women's social and cultural issues. And I agree, Professor Vinita Singh, with all of your points of view that yes, women are trapped in their productive and social role. And I would say empowerment starts within ourselves. No one else can make us empowered if we don't take our own stand from deciding on what do I want to eat to if I want to work in my passionate field, I will work on my what I have studied for. So, but still we can say there are not only that, there are many areas where more needs to be done than is being done. Like Professor Vinita Singh, like you, she has talked in depth about social and cultural issues. Let me say that women are also underrepresented in politics, business, and corporate jobs and STEM fields. So The representation matters, especially when studies shows that gender equality is still far being reached, whether in boardroom, C-suites, and in compensation. Women are underrepresented in fields where success is believed to require brilliance. So data taken from Harvard Law School Forum says there are in US there are only 5% women CEOs, and in India only 4%, and so on. So, but no more than 10% in the world. So at the top of industry and government, the faces remain stubbornly male. In fact, there is some evidence that numbers of women are actually decreasing in these fields. Also, Sheryl Sandberg, the chief operating officer of Facebook, said that women are not making at the top of any profession in the world. International Labour Organization Director General Guy Ryder also said that globally women have fewer opportunities for economic participation than men, less access to basic and higher education, greater health and safety risks, and less political representation. And US also lagged far behind other countries on women's representation in government. The laws were made by men and are dominated by men, and that are same goes for parliament. This means that in all of making the law, women are largely absent. It is not surprising that law doesn't work for women. So there are, like I said, there are many topics we need to work on. The other is women are more likely to suffer from poverty and lack of education. My heart breaks to look at the data that 130 million girls worldwide are out of school in 2018. Still today, girls are being considered in secondary considered secondary in getting education to their male siblings. In some of the cultures, their voices for their desire, their need for their existence is still suppressed. So also violence against women is rife worldwide. I currently am dealing with some domestic violence cases here in the USA and in India from different cultures. And in all of the cultures in societies, it is seen as couples' private matter. And wives are not supposed to talk about it in public. And there is an entire viciousness in the name of family honor or shame, etc. And that prevents women from openly recounting their troubles. So these issues still exist in each society, in each country. And we say that if we need to have women in politics, women need to become a leader. But I would say that if women can't have a voice in her family, own family, how could she be a leader? She needs to have a voice, and like Professor Vinita Singh said, she needs to be a financially independent first, and then no one would be able to abuse her. And no one would be able to dare to abuse a daughter of an empowered woman, empowered mother. Let's talk that women, we can say that women are better off today, but still far being equal with men. There are many such things around us that we observe, but we stop noticing them. So women's empowerment is a critical aspect of achieving gender equality. We need to give rise to voice which is silent rather than voiceless. There is still continuing need worldwide for more progressive mindset and inclusive behavior to be forced. We must try and create the world we want to live in, minister to the world in a way that can change it. We all cannot expect this change globally if we don't take action locally at an individual level. We all must work towards helping needy girls, protecting them from any danger she lives in, getting them to education, making them empowered. Our daughters must be grown with respect, attention, and dedication to make them independent, self-sufficient, resilient, strong, and successful women. Like Professor Vinita Singh, you just said that thank you for looking into my Facebook profile. And like you said, yes, it is my passion to work on women empowerment. I want to see each girl, each woman independent who I come across around in my life. And that is why, like you said, here in my employees, all these girls, even my customers, they all say, can we call you mama? Because I always keep telling them about how women should be, how you should be independent, how you should be financially independent. You are not supposed to depend on your brother, your partner, your husband, your father. You need to be financially independent. You need to take financial responsibility of your family. So yes, women's nature is mother nature. And if we spread our mother nature to other people around us and try to make them empowered, we definitely can see change in our societies. So so let me tell you this, that during my entrepreneurship, I saw many lives struggling from their, I have seen here, struggling from their drug addictions to financial independence to social existence. And speaking to many of the girls and women in USA and in India, I realized that problem is still huge and we need to challenge for change about social norms, stereotypes, and fight against bias. So I believe that if we want to bring desirable change in community, begin from self. And so I'm extremely proud to have founded the Raise Global Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit organization in May 2019 to engage, educate, and empower young generation to build a support network in USA and in India. Hundreds of girls, women, boys, and men have benefited from our gender equality awareness campaigns in India. And we do not make only women aware, men too. We must educate boys and men to understand, realize, and accept women's feelings, women's freedom, women's work, women's rights, and their free identity. So, RAISE is about focusing on empowering the young generation and promoting and advocating an array of topics from drug awareness and financial independence and women empowerment. We at RAISE run the campaigns and also run women empowerment campaigns, also run financial literacy workshop with a highly defined purpose of a betterment of our next generation. We help the young men and girls to have necessary life skills to negotiate the key life decisions. We strive to eliminate discrimination and violence against women across religion and ethnicity. We will provide consultation by ensuring the voices of women across the marginalized community. We'll run youth-led campaigns and strengthen their capacity to make gender equality in lived reality. Due to pandemic, we conduct webinars to educate, engage, and empower youth. But soon, we are waiting to conduct in-person workshops, seminars, and campaigns. I wouldn't take more time here. In the end,
Oh,
I would say that we do not need magic to change the world. We carry all the power we have inside ourselves already. We have to power to imagine better. We have power to imagine better. Hold on to your dreams. Believe in yourself. Take up the challenges of forging an identity that transcends yourself. Challenge each stigma, bias, or mindset for change. Transcend yourself and you will find yourself. Choose to change. Happy Women's Day. Thank
Happy
you.
Women's Day. Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you so
Thank you.
much
Thank
for
you.
it was
It
my
was a
pleasure
very,
today.
interesting and insightful discussion, I would say. And since we are running out of the time, so so participant, if you have any question, you can just write on mail, right? We'll have the interaction via mail, right? So just I am concluding the session, and both, and I'm personally very grateful to Vinita ma'am, and I know her, personally also by this platform, online platform. And really, madam, you spoke so well. It's like, and the issue usually that is very pragmatic and practical. That insight is very significant, right? So I want to listen you more and more, but there is a limitation of time. So I'm just concluding by saying that gender equality doesn't happen overnight, but collectively, through the sense of solidarity, through the sense of Durkheimian idea of sacred, sacred to fight against the injustice. And each one of us can help to create a gender equal world. And let's all take a small forward the progress for each for equal, and we'll definitely get you know uh, uh, get there together for that matter. And the Women's Day, it's not a day, I think, but it's more of a occasion to gift, right, and make your loved, in family and closed one, feel, special about themselves, and starting, a journey of being happy, loved, and blessed together, and throughout, our life. And woman and man is, just a social constructed world. Rather, we have a mature being. We live for the fuel of loyalty, depth, and warmth of relationship. So thank you so much for having again a very productive and critical discussion about the nature of gender equality and women's empowerment, and wish you a very, very, very happy International Women's Day today and always. Thank you, madam, so much.
Thank you so much, Randir.
Thank
I can do anything to have you smiling like that.
you. Thank you.
Anything
It
that will
comes
fix
from
you
within.
people smile.
Thank
That should always be there.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay
Thank you so
then.
much.
Okay then.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.